40% of grade 4 learners in Makhanda can read for meaning. These results are from a study which included over 1,000 children and all primary school teachers in the city. Most teachers at the schools that were assessed say, among other challenges, the lack of proper foundation education results in many pupils in grade 4 struggling to read for meaning. Lerato Fekisi has more for us.
Literacy built on a firm foundation of basic reading is use of the primary measures of school success. Weaker reading has been linked to a lack of scholastic achievement, low self-esteem, discipline issues, as well as high levels of school dropout. The recent Progress in International Reading Literacy Study report shows that 82% of South African learners in grade 4 cannot read for meaning. This means that roughly 8 out of 10 children need help locating and retrieving stated information in simple and easy text. But in Makhanda, grade 4 pupils are defying the odds. 40% of the grade 4 learners in Makhanda can read for meaning.
One noun and who it is a noun. Jane watched the speckled bird glide gracefully over the swaying treetops.
This comes from a literacy research project run by Garda Education in partnership with Rhodes University Department of Primary and Early Childhood Education in Makhanda. Good Shepherd Primary School, a non-fee paying school in Makhanda, achieved the highest score in the number of grade 4 learners who can read with meaning. 66% of the learners are able to read for meaning, and only 5% of them speak English at home.
Important because when someone gets old, she or he doesn't know if he's gonna become a teacher or a principal. So maybe when he becomes a teacher, he can also teach the other children who are little than him, just like his baby sister or brother.
The study utilized a 62.5 benchmark level for comprehension. Therefore, a mark of 15 or higher out of 24 falls to the category considered able to read for meaning. The study also showed that 62% of the learners whom English was the language of learning and teaching in the foundation phase are able to read for meaning.
Our biggest success as a school is the quality of our foundation phase teaching and learning that's happening at the moment. For me to say, our children by grade 4 can read with this level of understanding, it really just goes to show the dedication and the work of the foundation phase teachers and the importance and the value that they place on reading.
Another success in Makhanda is Archimbolekwa Primary School. The pupils, like all pupils who took part in the research, were tested in the language of their foundation phase. The school achieved the highest performing isiXhosa School Award. 40% of the pupils at this school can read for meaning.
It is important that we are able to read with understanding in our mother tongue, because when we can do this, we can better explain things to our parents and our siblings.
Learners are not being helped at home. They are not being supported by their parents. Those who are being supported and being helped, at least they are doing well in their studies, more especially isiXhosa. They are able to read, they are able to learn with meaning.
Collaborative work from various entities within the education space has been seen as the key in achieving the success of Makhanda schools.
Across the board, the reaction has been really positive and very interested. So I've had a lot of follow-up phone calls from teachers and principals trying to find out. We have some learners who are struggling. Can you tell us who those learners are? Can you give us advice on what we can do to help them moving forward, and also what gaps we might have in our foundation phase that we need to address to make sure that next year's grade 4 group are ready to go.
Garda Education and the Rhodes University Department of Primary and Early Childhood Education will be working closely with schools, teachers and learners to respond appropriately and urgently to the support needs identified in the study. Lerato Fekisi, SABC News, Makhanda.
All right, to discuss this further, we're now joined by Kelly Long, lead researcher on the Grade 4 comprehension study, and Hendrick Makaneta, an education activist. Thank you to you both for joining us this afternoon. Kelly Long, let me start with you. So 40% of the Grade 4 learners, according to your research in Makhanda, can read for meaning. Just talk to us about, very briefly, about the methodology of your study, your measures, as well as the schools that were sampled.
So we tried as far as possible to replicate the pupils study. We didn't actually use the pupils instruments. We developed our own instruments and consulted with a number of education experts to check that those instruments were actually correct. We tested 3 different levels of comprehension. Each child wrote a comprehension test that had 2 stories in it. The first story had a total of 12 marks, and 4 of those marks tested literal comprehension. The next 4 marks tested inferential comprehension ability, and the last 4 marks tested evaluative comprehension ability. The second story was a factual story, which had the same mark makeup and tested the same comprehension skills as the first. So the final mark was out of 24. And as was spoken about in the piece, we used a 62.5% as the measure for whether or not a learner was able to read for meaning, which was a decision made based on local research that has been put out and DBE outlines. We are really very excited about the study. We were able to work in partnership with the final year B.Ed students who are studying to complete their foundation phase Bachelor of Education degrees this year, and went out in teams with those students into the schools. And the comprehension tests, the marks were all moderated by went through 2 different moderation processes, and all of the captured marks were then validated as well through a random sample set. So we are very pleased to be able to say that we feel that the data is very reliable. We had 20 schools included in the study, 14 of which are fee-exempt schools, and 2 were low-fee private schools. The others were fee-paying public schools.
Kelly, before I bring in Hendrick to this conversation, very quickly, I just want to, of course, clarify also the Pearl study that you're speaking about, and I want to draw it in. It's the Progress International Reading Literacy Study, right? And I also want to ask you about it. I mean, this study, of course, in December of 2021, the Department of Education shared some of the results, and it revealed that 81% of grade 4 pupils in South Africa can't read for meaning. So my question to you is your study disputing these findings or drawing parallels against the national picture with Makhanda?
I think we're trying to draw parallels more than sort of arguing against it. What we were trying to establish really, and the reason for embarking on the project, was when the Pearls 2021 results were released in May last year, it made us very aware that something needs to be done very urgently. I work for Gadra Education, which is a local NGO that's done dedicated work in primary schools over the last 15 years in Makhanda, and Rhodes University does a lot of work with our primary schools. So we wanted to get a really good idea of what our particular picture looked like in Makhanda, and also be able to guide us so that we are best able to support our schools in our local area. So that was the reason for embarking on the study, and we did find those results really disheartening, particularly since the Pearls 2021 results actually showed a drop-off from the results that were released prior to that. So we have our education system is not, unfortunately, our primary education is not getting better. It seems to be actually getting a little bit worse. success.
All right, let's hold it there.
Studies.
Let's hold it there. Let me bring in Hendrick just on that point. So while the Makhanda study is somewhat positive, Hendrick, there is work needed to be done, as Kelly's pointing out, especially when you look at, the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. How important then is proper foundation education, especially when it comes to literacy and reading for meaning and context, and where is South Africa lacking?
The foundation phase needs to be strengthened. There is no doubt that up to now, the various, sectors, phases, there was a lot of focus, or even now there's still a lot of focus, if you look nationally, on the senior phase as well as the FET phase. This is where a lot of resources are pumped in. And of course, teachers in the foundation phase are doing a lot to try and, improve the performance of learners. But we really think that the study in Makhanda, perhaps, as the lady has just shown, shows a bigger improvement in relation to the one national, as you have just said. But our view is that government generally should invest a lot in the foundation phase of our education system, with a view to ensure that our learners generally are able to read for meaning, so that they too can be able to create a better future for themselves. I mean, the whole question of dropout rates is affecting us as we proceed into the senior phase as well as the FET phase, because by the time learners reach those phases, you find that they are not adequately prepared. They seem to struggle with content, and hence some of them end up dropping out along the way. And this is something that we believe can be fixed if we can invest a lot in the foundation phase.
I want to ask you both this question, but let me stick with you, Hendrick. So earlier in the year, Minister Angie Motshekga said that as a department, they are finalizing a revised national reading plan to address just some of the gaps that the study has revealed. How important is it, do you think, to include home language literacy, as we heard in that clip that played a little bit earlier on?
It's very, very important to include home language literacy. Learners seem to do well. In fact, they are able to cope very well if they are using their mother tongue. And I know that in the Eastern Cape, this is one province where they've been able to move with the necessary speed to make sure that they accommodate isiXhosa, for example, even in the FET phase. So that our learners can be able to read with their mother tongue. So where we are still lacking is the question of teaching and learning in the classroom. We still think that our teachers are not able to teach higher order, comprehension skills, particularly in the foundation phase. The whole question of qualification, I know that some schools, for example, are able to use even teachers who are not really qualified yet. Some of them are still studying and they are already in the classroom. I think that this is a matter that the basic education minister should urgently resolve, to make sure that highly qualified teachers are also deployed in the foundation phase, as opposed to only the senior phase as well as the FET phase.
Kelly, let me wrap up with you, and just on the back of what Hendrick was saying, I mean, you've also found some interesting, determinations, in terms of language, and using home language literacy. Just talk to us a little bit about that, and the importance, of course, in as far as closing these gaps. Is language important, home language that is?
International research is very strongly positive, and positive results have been seen from children learning how to read, the basic building blocks of reading in their home language. And the argument is that if they learn those building blocks really well in their home language, then the transition into another language of learning is actually much easier, and they do much better if those building blocks are learned in the language that they speak in their homes. Unfortunately, that isn't the case for a lot of our children in South Africa. We still have a lot of children who don't go to schools where they are able to learn how to read in their home language. It is very interesting in the study to see that across the board, even those learners who don't speak English in their homes but have been learning in schools that have English as the language of teaching and learning from grade R have done better than the children who are learning in isiXhosa from grade R. But I do agree with Hendrick there. I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in particularly in African languages, early childhood education. It's relatively new academic languages and relatively little research to guide teachers on the best ways in which to approach teaching, where we know that research is established in English. So there is a lot of work to be done, but I don't think that we can say that home language instruction isn't correct. It does seem to be the correct way to go, but we need to do a lot of work.
All right. Thank you so much to you both for your time this afternoon and, of course, for unpacking this study. That was Kelly Long, lead researcher on the Grade 4 Comprehension Study, as well as Hendrick Makaneta, an education activist. Of course, the study has revealed that 40% of the Grade 4 learners in Makhanda in the Eastern Cape can read for meaning.